Field, and I just don't know what to do with myself. It's BBC Radio Leicester. It's 30 minutes past 10. Well, you could take a year off, because over the weekend Jenson Button announced that he's taking a year out from Formula One racing next year. He might return in 2018. I guess he'll make his mind up. The former world champion is going to remain an ambassador for McLaren in the meantime. Here's what he said about the decision.
I'm excited to do something next year that's completely different to Formula One, living by my schedule, doing what I want to do. I can wake up late on a Sunday morning when the Australian Grand Prix is going on, but I still will be current. I will still be doing work in the simulator. I'll be at a few of the races, but there's every opportunity I'll be in the car in 18, and I'll make sure I'm definitely ready for that, but that's a long way in the future.
So how common is it to take a year out so late into a career? Is it simply possible because, frankly, he can afford to? Or could it be easy enough for anybody to take time off to achieve a goal or ambition, or even to take on a new career altogether? Well, we asked some people in Leicester City how they would utilise a year out of work.
I think I'd have spent it learning something new. I worked with special needs children all my teaching career, but I really wanted to do a law degree, so I suspect I'd have used it to get some more education in law.
I would say I would go travelling to places that I always dreamt as a teenager, even to Africa, and we never had the chance to go backpacking, and it's one of the things that we both probably would enjoy doing as well.
I'd spend it with family, friends, quality time with them, unwinding with them, just enjoying life, talking, communicating, definitely.
I'd work on my filming and my script writing, but I'd also just catch up on all the box sets I've missed being at university. There's a lot of them out there I need to watch.
I think I'd probably go to New York, maybe get a place in Brooklyn and concentrate on following my artistic pursuing. I'd go down that route, I think. I'd spend a long time there because I just love it there.
If I got enough money and I could afford it, I would travel as much as possible, enjoy life. Life's too short, so go for it.
Well, there you are. So what is stopping us from doing all these things? It might seem too good to be true for some. Others may have never even given it a second thought. But surely if Jenson can do it, then the rest of us can. Joining us in the studio to discuss this a bit further is Rachel Helmn. Now, she's an expert in wellbeing, coaching and people development. Rachel, good morning.
Good morning.
Years off. Are more people doing it?
Absolutely, yes. And we see a lot of information now out there about people actually wanting to take a career break. But it's a question of how. Well,
I was going to say, and it's easy to take that view, isn't it? Oh, Jenson Button's got loads of cash, of course he can go and do it. But that's kind of slightly not the point. The fact is he's worked very hard. Since a very young child, actually, through go-karting and all that kind of thing. He's worked hard. He's worked to a very stringent level, fitness, all that kind of stuff. You can sort of see why you might get to a level of having achieved most things that you want to. You think, actually, do I need to keep doing this? Maybe I just need a bit of perspective.
And I think looking at the story about Jenson, if you look behind all of the communications with the press, it's actually, he lost his father a couple of years ago, so there's a real emotional attachment and purpose for him taking this break, as well as just feeling probably exhausted like a lot of us do every day.
And it could go both ways, though, couldn't it? I mean, suddenly somebody with a skill set like his, it needs to be kept current. And it's interesting that he said he'll stay in the simulator, he'll stay around that world to keep his skills, level, I suppose. And that can either be that you de-skill yourself over a year, or you come back so refreshed that you can sort of push on beyond where you were before.
I mean, certainly the people that we've worked with and the evidence that's out there, people who do take a career break never regret it. And they come back with an enhanced attitude towards work and pick up lots of other competencies along the way.
So in your work, how does it work? Then somebody comes to you and says, look, I feel in the doldrums. I mean, how do people present to you?
We listen to people. So it's all about a conversation, really, about understanding what are some of the issues that somebody has or restrictions in their life, about being able to put a foot forward to actually take a career break and look at things differently. So we don't ask why, we ask what and how, and we help people to take that journey.
And there are sweet spots in people's lives, aren't they, where where it becomes possible, and there are sometimes, frankly, when it just isn't. You know, maybe your children are very young, or there are financial responsibilities, whatever. But there can come a moment where you've almost got to be ready to grab it, because if you let it go past, it's gone, and it's gone forever.
If we look at the reasons why people feel that they're unable to take that leap forward, it comes back to fear. So fear of not being able to put food on the table, for example, or fear of what the future may look like if they step out of their jobs. Fear of being viewed by other people as a slacker. We've had lots of those comments. I know that's hard to believe, but people do think that. So it comes down to you as an individual, really, but generally we tend to focus on fear and looking at the art of the possible, and most things are possible.
A guy I spoke to on, I've just come back off holiday down in the south of France, and lovely winemaking area, wandered into a little shop in a village owned by a British couple and their 3 children, and got nattering, and it was exactly that. He obviously had a very successful job, well off, not rich, but well off, and they took the decision to jack it all in, sell the house, liquidate every asset that they got, buy a little place in France and make wine. And they are doing it, and it's winning awards, and they're making a living. But the biggest decision, it seemed to be, was taking the children and immersing themselves in French life, not expat life, but actually going deliberately to a little village and putting them in the village school. That's a big decision.
Yeah, and going back to the fear analogy, change is quite fearful. So we tend to stay in a zone where we're very comfortable with everyday living. So the pattern of work, the pattern of school, our children being settled and used to life being the same every day. So that's a great example of where putting yourself in a place where it's slightly uncomfortable, and very maybe uncomfortable for the children as well, but making it work. So it's about desire, really. And I think as a family, if you are all in it and you discuss it and you see that as your future, then you can make it work.
I mean, people go off around the world on yachts and stuff, don't they? I mean,
yes.
And which sounds
Fantastic.
extreme. Well, it sounds incredibly exotic, doesn't it? But if you think, if you sold your house and really went for it with no foothold back, which is a big, scary decision, suddenly you opportunities arise.
Of course. I recall myself when I took a career break.
Did you?
From many years of working in the NHS. I went to New Zealand. Hadn't got a clue what I was going to do when I got there other than see family. And I took a view that I have a skill set, and a lot of people, everybody has something about them. So I took that and as an opportunity, and came back, and it worked, really. So I think sometimes we don't recognise us as human beings and our potential, and the scope of potential we do have is amazing.
We're all problem solvers, aren't we? If we let ourselves do it and don't see a problem as a problem. Oh, I hate this. I can't even believe I've walked into this. Don't see a problem as a problem, but as an opportunity, which is just such a trite thing to say. But I do mean quite seriously that if you see a problem as something to relish resolving, suddenly other things can appear.
Yes. It's a bit like if you ever been in a situation where the conversation is quite negative. So what we trip into then is negative conversation. So if we're in an area where it's, we talk about the art of the possible, and yes, we can do this, it gains momentum. So I think, not talking about the problem and thinking about, okay, what's the solution? What's the future? What can we do? What skills have we got? It's an amazing starting point, really.
In most cases, there's a need to come back, or a want to come back, isn't it? To go and do the year, to do that journey, and then come back and sort of almost not pick up from where you left off, but, in principle, get back to work and stuff. What was it like for you doing that? Because it's hard enough going away for a fortnight and coming back to work, but going away for a year and experiencing new things, making new friends, and then coming back maybe to the same build in the same people, was that hard, or?
I didn't go back to the same position that I was in, and the people that we work with tend probably not to, because whilst you're out of work on that career break, you rediscover yourself. You rediscover your skills, your thinking, you think about everyday life very differently, and you're much freer in the mind to think about all the opportunities and the possibilities, and you have the confidence to come back and try something different. That may be a new course, it may be a new job, or a new vocation in life. So
is that the people will be howling at the radio saying it's all well and good, however, I have a mortgage, I've got children, I've got dependents,
Yeah.
I've got to look after my parents, or whatever it might be. Is there a way of doing it in a virtual sense? It's kind of a halfway house, or is it all or nothing?
It's never all or nothing, and there is something for everybody. Usually people set out a great vision of where they want to be, and then when we break it down, there are certain factors that may cause a restriction on that, but then it's possible to actually look at what are the solutions to those restrictions. So I don't think it's all or nothing. You can take a small step forward and have a greater fulfilment that you've got already.
So maybe that's a question of just, that hobby that you dabble at, actually taking it a step further, and maybe that becomes a little business, or taking up that hobby that you've always promised yourself by, spending a bit of money on yourself, not in a selfish sense, but to invest in yourself and say, actually, you know what, if I do that thing, whatever it might be, I think it'll be better for me, for the family, for friends.
Yeah, and it's not a great shopping list that you have to achieve. I always think about, great people have said to me, do one thing that makes you feel uncomfortable this week. And it works. And it works because you think, well, that wasn't so bad, was it? I've survived, and I've achieved something that I probably wouldn't have achieved because I feel uncomfortable about it.
How many people come to you in the course of your work and say, look, I need something to reboot what's going on in a year off, or something similar? How often does that present itself to you?
Even more so. That's growing, particularly if we look at the ages 45 plus, where we're in mid-career, and now we see career paths being a lot longer because most of us have to work longer. So it's an emerging kind of theme, really, that people realise that they're probably going to have 4 or 5 careers throughout their whole of their working life. So yes, it's something that's growing significantly.
But you have to think about it, don't you? And there'll be lots of people listening to this thinking, oh yeah, I could go and sit on a beach for a year. Well, you could, and I'm not. And if that's what you need, then get off there and get your flip-flops sorted out. But actually, in most cases, people want to go and do something, don't they?
They do. They want to do something. So what we do is work with people to find that. What is that something? What is the thing that most people want to do? I think people want to rediscover themselves. They've spent, like Jenson, a lot of time in corporate life, a lot of time, or even as a carer or some other role that's significantly, and they feel burnt out. So they take time out to actually reflect on what they want to do, but majority of people have a plan.
I got the impression from what Jenson Button was saying is that there is a plan there, that he's sort of put a plan in, but actually there's enough wriggle room, because there's no point welding yourself down to something that's effectively the same as work. I just got the impression he was like, well, we'll take a bit of a breather for a bit, see how it goes, but there is stuff to do, but at the same time you've got to leave a little bit of room in there to do that discovery stuff.
Yes, and that's what we work with people to do, because if we look at how much you achieve in life, a lot of that comes from, yes, having the right support to do that on your own development, but also your own individual well-being as well. So if our minds are not in a great place and we've got poor health and through a hard-working life, then we might not enjoy that career break as much as we would from having everything in place. So Jenson's, I think, doing it in the right way. Yes, he's got the money, but actually has a plan.
Yeah, and good luck to him. I hope he has a brilliant year, and I hope we see him back on the track in 2018 if that's what he wants to do. Rachel, it's lovely to have you in the studio. Thank you so much for coming in.